The betting pool had reached 15,000 credits by the time Riley Brooks walked onto the scarred metal floor. Above her, 3,000 spectators from 40 different worlds pressed against the viewing barriers, their voices creating a wall of noise that echoed through Station Harrow's main combat arena. Most of them were laughing. Riley ignored the sound. She had heard worse during her years in the military. The knife on her hip felt comfortable and familiar, its weight barely noticeable after a decade of carrying it. She unclipped the sheath and drew the blade in one smooth motion. 20 centimeters of carbon steel caught the arena lights. In the opposite entrance, Horvath emerged with 7 other Draken warriors behind him. Each one stood over 2.5 meters tall, their scaled hides gleaming like polished armor. Horvath carried a weapon that looked like someone had welded an axe blade to a meat cleaver and then added spikes for decoration. The thing was easily as long as Riley was tall. The Draken leader stopped at the center mark and stared down at the human. His vertical pupils contracted as he examined her blade. Then he started laughing. It was a deep, rumbling sound that his warriors quickly joined. Within seconds, half the arena was laughing with them. "That is your weapon." Horvath's translator rendered his words in flat, emotionless tones that somehow made the mockery worse. "I have seen hatchlings with bigger teeth." Riley rotated her wrist, checking the blade's balance. "It does the job of cutting your food, perhaps." Horvath turned to address the crowd. "The human brings a kitchen tool to a warrior's challenge. Should I fetch her an apron as well?" More laughter rolled through the arena. Riley watched Horvath play to his audience, noting how he positioned himself, how his weight shifted. The Draken was confident. That confidence came from hundreds of victories. She could see it in the casual way he held his massive weapon, in the scars that decorated his arms and chest. Station Master Quellen descended from the administrative booth on 4 spindly legs. His species resembled spiders more than anything else Riley had encountered. 2 of his arms held data tablets while the other 2 gestured as he spoke. "The challenge is witnessed and recorded. Lieutenant Riley Brooks of the Human Defense Forces has accepted Horvath's challenge regarding the disputed trade contracts. 3 combats. Victory by submission or incapacitation. Medical teams stand ready. Lethal force is not authorized." Quellen's multiple eyes fixed on Riley. "Lieutenant Brooks has requested Earth standard gravity for the arena floor. This request is granted." Horvath snorted. Of course the human needs her weak world's gravity. Without it, she might strain herself lifting that tiny knife. His warriors found this hilarious. Even some of the other species in the crowd joined in. Riley had expected this. The file on Draken psychology she had studied mentioned their love of verbal combat before physical confrontation. It was a dominance display, meant to intimidate opponents before the fighting even started. She began stretching, working through the routine she had performed 10,000 times. Left arm across her chest, hold for 10 seconds. Right arm, rotate the shoulders. Bend forward, touch her toes, feel the pull in her hamstrings. The laughter continued around her, but it was just noise now. Background static. The first Draken warrior, Grell, stepped forward. He was younger than Horvath, with fewer scars but more eagerness. His weapon was a curved blade that sang as he swung it through the air in wide practice arcs. Each swing would have bisected Riley if it connected. "I will try not to step on you, little human," Grell said. His translator caught the sneer in his voice perfectly. Riley finished her stretches and settled into a ready stance. Her knife hand stayed low and relaxed. Her weight balanced on the balls of her feet. She had fought in 17 actual combat situations and hundreds of training scenarios. She had sparred against opponents from a dozen species. The knife in her hand had been designed by people who understood that humans were not the strongest or fastest species in the galaxy, but they were among the most adaptable. Quellen raised one arm. "First combat. Begin when ready." Grell charged immediately. His species believed in overwhelming force, in using their natural advantages of size and strength to crush opposition before it could react. Riley had read about this tendency. She had trained against it. The massive curved blade came down in an overhead chop that would have split a cargo container. Riley moved 3 steps to her left. The blade hit the arena floor with a screech of metal on metal, throwing sparks. Grell recovered quickly and swung horizontally, the blade whistling through the space where Riley had been standing a moment before. She was already moving, circling, keeping her movements small and efficient. Grell pursued, his weapon cutting through the air in brutal arcs. The crowd's laughter had died away. People were watching now, trying to understand what they were seeing. Grell was fast for his size, but his weapon had momentum. Every swing required commitment. Every miss forced him to recover before he could attack again. Riley stayed just beyond his reach, letting him expend energy, letting him grow frustrated. The Draken warrior roared and launched a combination attack, 3 swings in rapid succession. The last one came within a hand's width of Riley's head. She felt the wind of its passage. But she had seen the pattern, recognized the rhythm. Grell wound up for another massive overhead chop. This time, Riley moved forward instead of away. She closed the distance as his blade reached its highest point, when he was most committed to the strike. Her knife flashed once, a precise cut to the tendon just above his weapon hand. Grell's fingers spasmed open. The huge blade fell from his grip and clattered on the arena floor. Riley's follow-up strike was equally precise, a cut to the back of Grell's knee that severed nothing vital but collapsed his leg. The Draken warrior crashed down onto his knees with a thunderous impact. The arena was completely silent. Medical drones swarmed forward, their scanners already assessing Grell's injuries. The Draken warrior stared at his hand in confusion, trying to understand how the fight had ended so quickly. Riley stepped back and lowered her blade. She was not even breathing hard, but Horvath's laughter had stopped. Medical drones worked on Grell's hand and leg while Horvath watched Riley with new eyes. The human had not moved from her position. She stood relaxed, her blade held loosely at her side. There was no triumph in her posture, no gloating. She simply waited. The crowd had erupted into shocked conversation. Money changed hands as bets were collected. Several species known for their combat prowess leaned forward in their seats, studying the small human with sudden interest. Quellen's translator crackled. First combat concluded. Lieutenant Brooks is victorious. Prepare for second combat. Desh stepped forward before Horvath could speak. He was the tallest of the Draken warriors, nearly 3 meters of scaled muscle and scarred hide. Unlike Grell, Desh carried a spear-like weapon with a blade at each end. The weapon was taller than he was. I watched you, human, Desh said. His voice was calmer than Grell's had been. You are quick, but quickness means nothing against reach. I will keep you at a distance and wear you down. Riley nodded. Sound strategy. Desh's eyes narrowed at her easy agreement. He began to circle, keeping the spear between them. The weapon's length gave him nearly 4 meters of attack range. Riley's knife would require her to be within arm's reach to strike. The Draken warrior made a testing thrust, the spear blade shooting forward with surprising speed. Riley turned sideways, letting it pass. Another thrust, aimed low. She lifted her foot, the blade passing beneath. Desh pulled back and adjusted his grip. You can only dodge for so long, he said. That is true, Riley replied. She moved forward 2 steps. Desh immediately thrust, aiming for her center mass. Riley shifted left. The blade missed by centimeters. She advanced again. Another thrust, this time from a different angle. She ducked under it, still moving forward. Desh recognized the problem. Each thrust committed him to a direction. Each miss meant Riley closed the distance. He began backing up, trying to maintain his range advantage. Riley matched his pace exactly, never rushing, never hesitating. The Draken warrior changed tactics. He began using the spear's length differently, swinging it horizontally in wide arcs that covered more space. Riley dropped low, the blade whistling over her head. She rolled forward as Desh completed the swing and tried to reverse it. Now she was inside his guard. Desh saw her coming and tried to use the spear shaft to block. Riley's blade flashed, not at Desh but at the weapon itself. She struck the shaft just off-center, where the weapon's balance point made it heavy. The precise cut did not sever the shaft, but weakened it critically. Desh tried to swing the spear around for a desperate strike. The weakened shaft bent under the stress and then snapped with a sharp crack. Both ends of the weapon tumbled away across the arena floor. The Draken warrior stared at his empty hands for half a second. Then his training took over, and he reached for Riley, intending to use his size advantage in close combat. Riley was already moving. She stepped inside his reaching arms and drove her shoulder into his midsection, using his own forward momentum against him. Desh stumbled backward. Riley's blade found the gap between his chest plates and shoulder joint, a precise cut that severed muscles and nerves. His right arm dropped uselessly to his side, that a follow-up strike to his other arm ended the fight. Desh sank to his knees, both arms hanging limp. Medical drones swarmed in immediately. The Draken warrior looked at Riley with something approaching respect. "How?" he asked simply. Riley sheathed her knife for a moment. "Your species evolved as apex predators. You grew strong because you could be. Humans evolva differently. We were prey animals that learned to hunt. We survived by being precise, by understanding our enemies better than they understood themselves." She looked up at Horvath. "Every human soldier studies anatomy. We know where tendons connect, where nerves bundle, where armor is weakest. Your species builds weapons to intimidate and overpower. We build weapons to solve problems efficiently." Horvath descended to the arena floor. His warriors parted to let him through. He moved slowly, considering Riley's words. When he spoke, the mockery was gone from his voice. "You have defeated 2 of my finest warriors. Both are alive and will heal completely. That shows control." He looked at his massive weapon and then at her knife. "I begin to understand. But understanding alone does not grant victory." He stepped into the arena's combat zone. "I'm not Grell or Desh. I have fought for 40 cycles. I have studied warfare from 100 worlds. I will not underestimate you again, human." Riley drew her knife once more. "Good. I would hate to think these demonstrations were wasted." Quellen announced the 3rd combat. The crowd pressed closer to the barriers. This would be different. Everyone could sense it. Horvath attacked with none of Grell's reckless aggression or Desh's cautious patience. He moved with deliberate control, his strikes powerful but measured. His weapon came in at angles that limited Riley's dodging options. When she moved to counter, he was already adjusting, reading her intentions. They circled each other, trading strikes that never quite connected. Horvath's weapon forced Riley to give ground, but she did so on her terms, never letting herself get trapped. When she found an opening and darted in, Horvath's defense was waiting. The fight lasted 3 full minutes, both warriors searching for advantage. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Then Horvath did something unexpected. He laughed. Not mockery this time, but genuine pleasure. "You are teaching me," he said, blocking another of Riley's attempts. "Every strike, every defense. You show me things I had not considered." Riley parked a heavy blow and replied between breaths. That was the point. Horvath swung his weapon in a downward arc that Riley could have exploited. She saw the opening, recognized it for what it was, and did not take it. The Draken leader stopped. He lowered his weapon and stepped back. "I yield," Horvath said clearly. The arena erupted in confused noise. Quellen hurried forward, his translator struggling to be heard over the crowd. Horvath raised his voice. "The human came not to defeat us, but to teach us. I am wise enough to recognize a lesson when I see one." He looked at Riley with respect. "Your blade is not tiny. It is exactly as large as it needs to be." Riley nodded. "And your strength is not weakness. Applied correctly, it will be devastating." Before either could speak again, emergency sirens blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the arena in crimson as the sirens wailed. Quellen received a data burst on one of his tablets, and his multiple eyes widened in what Riley recognized as fear. Crimson fleet vessels. 6 ships. They are demanding cargo and threatening to breach the hull if we resist. The station master's voice carried through the arena's speaker system. "Security forces are responding, but we are outmatched. The crowd panicked. 3,000 beings from 40 worlds began pushing toward the exits simultaneously. Horvath's warriors moved to help control the surge, their size useful for creating barriers. Riley accessed her communicator. Brooks to Ranger 7. Static. Then her ship's AI responded. Ranger 7 receiving. We detect the hostile vessels. Estimated arrival time to your position is 4 hours, 18 minutes. 4 hours. Riley did the math quickly. The Crimson Fleet would not wait that long. They would board the station within the next 20 minutes if the pattern held. Horvath appeared at her side. Blood still dripped from minor cuts they had given each other during their fight. Your vessel cannot reach us in time. No, Riley agreed. Then we fight. It was not a question. Riley looked at the Draken leader, then at his warriors who were helping evacuate civilians. You would fight for a station that just watched you lose. I would fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Horvath's translator somehow conveyed the firmness in his voice. Is this not what your species would do? Riley smiled. Yes, it is exactly what we would do. She ran toward the arena's command booth where Quellen was coordinating with station security. Horvath followed, his heavy footfalls echoing on the metal deck. Station Master, I need your defensive grid layout and the location of all security checkpoints. Riley was already thinking in tactical terms. Also, give me the Raider approach vectors. Quellen transferred the data without question. Riley's neural implant absorbed it, creating a three-dimensional map in her mind. She could see the station's structure, its weak points, its natural choke points. They will breach here, here, and here. She pointed at 3 locations on the holographic display. These are the closest points to your cargo bays and your financial center. They want to grab what they can and run. Our security forces are concentrated at those locations, Quellen said. But we have only 30 trained guards against what our sensors indicate are at least 200 raiders. Riley studied the map. An idea formed. The raiders expect resistance at the breach points. They will come in heavy there, but they need to move through the station to reach the cargo. These corridors. She highlighted several passages. They are narrow, maybe 3 meters wide. Horvath saw where she was going. Choke points. They cannot use their numbers effectively. Exactly. Station Master, can you seal certain sections? Force them to use specific routes. Quellen's manipulator arms danced across his controls. Yes, our emergency bulkheads can be manually activated. We can create a maze that leads them where we want them. Then we turn this station into a trap. Riley pulled up personnel files. How many warriors do we have available? Not just security. Everyone who knows how to fight. The next 10 minutes were controlled chaos. Horvath gathered warriors from a dozen species who had been attending the arena fights. Riley briefed them quickly, her words translated into multiple languages simultaneously. She drew diagrams in the air with her finger, showing positions and tactics. Human warfare is based on a simple principle, she explained to the assembled fighters. Make the enemy come to you on ground you have chosen. Use the terrain as a weapon. Force them to fight where their advantages become disadvantages. A Corthan mercenary, built like a living boulder, raised a heavy arm. You want us to hide and ambush? That is cowards fighting. Riley met his gaze. I want you to survive and protect those who cannot protect themselves. Pride is a luxury we cannot afford today. Horvath stepped forward. The human speaks wisdom. I have seen her fight. She turned my strength against me, made my size a weakness. We will do the same to these raiders. The Corthan considered this, then nodded slowly. Riley divided the defenders into teams. Horvath's Draken warriors would hold the primary intersections, their strength useful for stopping armored raiders. Smaller, faster species would serve as runners and scouts. Range specialists positioned themselves at corridor ends. Station security forces linked into Riley's improvised command network. She positioned them at secondary choke points, backup if the primary positions failed. One more thing, Riley said to Quellen. Drop the gravity in the Raider approach corridors to 1/4 standard. Raise it to double standard in our defensive positions. That will affect us as well, a security officer protested. We will be braced and ready for it. They will not. Riley checked her knife. ensuring it was secure. Human soldiers train in variable gravity. We learn to fight anywhere. Use every advantage you can find. The first breach alarm sounded. Cutting torches screamed against the hull. Riley moved to her assigned position, a corridor intersection 40 meters from the nearest breach point. Horvath took the position beside her, his warriors spreading to flanking spots. "Tell me, human," Horvath said quietly, "do you truly believe we can hold against 200 raiders?" Riley watched the sealed bulkhead at the corridor's far end. Behind it, raiders were cutting through. She could see the metal beginning to glow orange. "I believe that 200 raiders are about to learn the same lesson you learned in the arena," she said. "Size and numbers matter less than knowing where to strike." The bulkhead fell inward with a crash. Pirates poured through the gap, weapons raised and voices howling in a dozen languages. Riley and Horvath stood their ground. The trap was sprung. The first wave of raiders stumbled through the breach in one-quarter gravity. They were a mixed group, several species chosen for their brutality rather than their skill. Most wore mismatched armor and carried weapons that looked like they had been stolen from various military forces. They had expected to move fast through the station corridors. Instead, they floated and bounced, their movements clumsy and uncontrolled. Several crashed into walls or into each other. Riley waited until 15 raiders had entered the corridor. Then she activated her communicator. "Now!" Quellen sealed the bulkhead behind the raiders. The only way forward was through the intersection where Riley and Horvath waited. The only way back was blocked. The raiders realized the trap too late. They tried to organize, to form up into a defensive position. The low gravity made it nearly impossible. Riley counted to 3, then rushed forward that I in the low gravity. She moved like she was underwater. But she had trained for this, had spent hundreds of hours in variable gravity chambers. Her movements were controlled and precise. The raiders were still trying to figure out how to walk. Her knife found the first raider, a slash across the weapon arm that made him drop his gun. The second raider tried to aim at her, but Riley pushed off the wall, changing direction mid-flight in a way he could not track. Her blade punctured his shoulder joint. Horvath charged with his warriors, and despite the low gravity, they were devastating. They used the walls and ceiling as much as the floor, their clawed feet finding purchase everywhere. The raiders scattered before them. The fight lasted 90 seconds. 15 raiders down, some unconscious, others clutching wounds. 0 defenders injured. Riley activated her communicator again. First group neutralized. Station master, restore normal gravity and seal them in. Medical teams can collect them later. Acknowledged. Quellen's voice was steadier now. Second breach point reports similar success. Third point is engaged now. Riley moved to the next position. The raiders would learn quickly. The next wave would be harder. She was right. The raiders at the second breach came in ready for low gravity. They moved carefully, using handholds welded to the corridor walls. There were more of them, nearly 30, and they were better armed. Riley watched them advance through a remote camera. They were heading straight for one of Horvath's prepared ambush points. The corridor narrowed there, forcing them into a single file line, T-normal gravity. 30 armed raiders would be a serious threat. Riley had changed the gravity to double standard at the ambush point. Earth gravity, where humans had evolved. Where human soldiers trained every day, the raiders entered the ambush zone and suddenly weighed twice what they expected. Several fell to their knees. Their movements became sluggish. Weapons that had felt light now felt heavy. The defenders dropped from concealed positions in the ceiling. In double gravity, they fell fast and hit hard. Riley led the assault. Her knife worked surgical in its precision. She targeted weapons first, then joints, then anywhere that would disable without killing. Horvath's team hit from the flanks. In the heavy gravity, their massive strength became even more overwhelming. They did not try to be precise like Riley. They simply bowled through the raiders like living battering rams. This fight took longer. 3 minutes of brutal close combat. Several defenders took minor injuries. But when it ended, 30 more raiders were down. Riley checked her people. A security guard had a broken arm. Two warriors had cuts that needed attention. Medical drones were already moving in. "You fight well, human," Horvath said. He had a scorch mark on his shoulder where an energy weapon had grazed him. "This trap of yours is working." "For now," Riley said, "but they will adapt. They have to know something is wrong by now." She was right about that, too. The third breach point reported that the raiders had stopped advancing. They were regrouping, communicating with each other. Riley could imagine their leader analyzing the situation, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. "They will come in force now," she said. "All remaining raiders, one big push." Horvath nodded. "Where will they hit?" Riley studied the station map. If she was leading the raiders, where would she go? The answer came quickly. Cargo Bay 7. It has the most valuable goods, and it has large doors. They can bring their whole force to bear there. She began moving defenders into position. Cargo Bay 7 had high ceilings and open floor space. The raiders would try to use their numbers there, spread out, and overwhelm the defenders through sheer volume of fire. Riley had other plans. She positioned the defenders not in the cargo bay itself, but in the 4 corridors leading to it. Each corridor was a killing zone. Horvath understood immediately. "We let them into the bay, then attack from all sides when they are spread out." "Exactly. They will expect us to defend the bay entrance. We give it to them instead." The raiders came an hour later. Over 100 fighters, moving carefully now. They had learned about the gravity traps and were checking every corridor before advancing. Riley let them come. They reached Cargo Bay 7 and found it empty. The raiders spread out cautiously, weapons sweeping the space. Nothing moved. No defenders appeared. Their leader, a scarred Vrillin with cybernetic enhancements, barked orders. His force began securing the cargo containers, preparing to haul them back to their ships. Riley watched through the cargo bay cameras. She waited until the raiders were fully committed, their attention on the cargo. Then she gave a signal. All 4 corridor doors opened simultaneously. Defenders poured in from every direction, weapons firing, warriors charging. The raiders tried to form a defensive circle, but they were caught in the open with nowhere to take cover. Riley moved through the chaos like a shadow. Her blade found gaps in armor, weak points in defenses. She disabled raiders with quick, efficient strikes. Around her, the other defenders fought with coordinated precision. They had trained together for less than an hour, but they followed her plan perfectly. Horvath led his warriors in a wedge formation that split the raider forces in half. The 2 groups could not support each other. Isolated, they began to panic. The fight lasted 5 minutes. When it ended, the cargo bay floor was covered with defeated raiders. The station was secure. Medical teams moved through Cargo Bay 7, treating injuries and securing prisoners. Riley counted casualties. 8 defenders seriously wounded, but all would survive. The raiders had not been so fortunate. Some had fought too hard and paid for it. Most would live to face trial. Horvath approached, limping slightly from a hit to his leg. "The raider ships are still out there. They will know their boarding parties failed. What happens now?" Riley checked her communicator. "Station Master, what is the status of the raider vessels?" Quellen's voice came through with an edge of panic. "They're moving into firing positions. Our defensive weapons cannot stop all 6 ships. They will destroy us." Riley closed her eyes, thinking. The station's weapons were designed to deter small pirate groups, not a full Crimson Fleet assault. The raiders outside had nothing to lose now. They would level the station rather than leave empty-handed. "Can you hail them?" she asked. "Of course, but they will not negotiate. The Crimson Fleet never does." "Hail them anyway. Put on the station-wide channel." A moment later, a voice filled the station speakers. It was harsh and angry, translated from some language Riley did not recognize. "This is Vorg, commander of Crimson Fleet Squadron 7. You have killed or captured my boarding teams. You will pay for this. We will crack this station like an egg and take what we want from the debris." Riley took the communicator. "This is Lieutenant Riley Brooks, Human Defense Forces. You need to leave now." Vorg laughed. "One human soldier gives me orders? You may have defeated my ground teams, but you cannot stop my ships. I have enough firepower to destroy this entire station 3 times over." "That is probably true," Riley said calmly. But you did not do your research. Do you know why I am here on Station Harrow? Silence for a moment. Then, I do not care why you are here. You will die here. I am here because my ship, Ranger 7, is a forward scout vessel for the 6th Human Fleet. We were mapping routes in this sector. Riley kept her voice conversational. The 6th Fleet consists of 23 warships, including 4 dreadnoughts. They are approximately 3 hours away. More silence. Riley could almost hear Vorg checking his sensors, confirming what she had just told him. You are bluffing. Why would a fleet be in this sector? We're expanding patrol routes. Piracy has increased in this region. I wonder why. Riley paused. You have 2 choices. Leave now and escape. Or stay and fight. And explain to your superiors why you wasted 6 ships attacking a station that is about to be reinforced by a human battle fleet. She could hear arguing voices on Vorg's end of the transmission. The Crimson Fleet was ruthless, but not stupid. They did not survive by fighting battles they could not win. How do I know you are telling the truth? Vorg demanded. Station Master Quellen can confirm the fleet's approach, or you can check your long-range sensors. They are not hiding. Riley checked her own data. Actually, they just detected your ships. I imagine they're accelerating toward us right now. More arguing. Then Vorg spoke again, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. This is not over, human. The Crimson Fleet remembers its enemies. Then remember this, Riley said. You attacked a station under human protection. You lost over 200 fighters. You gained nothing, and you had to run from one lieutenant with a knife. That is the story your fleet will hear. The raider ships began pulling away from the station. Their engines flared as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. Within minutes, they were gone. The station erupted in cheers. Riley sagged against a cargo container, suddenly exhausted. Horvath sat down beside her with a heavy thud. You lied, he said. It was not an accusation, just an observation. No, the 6th Fleet is exactly where I said they were, coming exactly as fast as I said. Riley grinned tiredly. I just did not mention they were already scheduled to pass through this sector. The timing was coincidence. Horvath's laugh was genuine this time. Deception is also a weapon. The best weapon is the one you never have to use. Riley stood up slowly. Your warriors fought well. Thank you for trusting me. I should thank you. You showed us something today. Horvath gestured at the mixed group of defenders, dozens of species working together. We came here as rivals. We leave as allies. Quellen scuttled over to them, his multiple eyes bright with relief. Lieutenant Brooks, I have already filed reports with the Galactic peacekeeping authorities. The Crimson Fleet will face sanctions for this attack, and you have my personal gratitude. The station owes you a debt. Riley shook her head. You owe the people who fought. I just gave them a plan. Nevertheless, the humans' assistance will be remembered. Quellen turned to Horvath, and the Draken warriors showed great courage. The trade dispute that brought you here seems very small now. I believe we can resolve it fairly. Horvath nodded. Agreed. Perhaps humans are better partners than opponents. Over the next several hours, the station slowly returned to normal. Injured defenders received treatment. Raider prisoners were secured and prepared for transport to proper detention facilities. Damage control teams sealed the hull breaches. Riley found herself in the arena again, this time with Horvath and his warriors. They sat together, sharing water and rations from emergency supplies. The betting pool display still showed the results of their fights, frozen in time before the raid. Tell me about human military training, Horvath said. I want to understand how you learn to fight as you do. Riley considered her answer. We train for every environment, every situation, every possible enemy. Not because we expect to face all of them, but because we never know which one we will face. Humans are not the strongest or fastest species, so we became the most adaptable. Adaptable. Horvath tested the word. Yes, I see that now. You adapted to fighting us in the arena. You adapted to defending the station with whatever forces you had available. This is your true strength. One of them, Riley agreed. The other is that we are very, very stubborn. We do not stop looking for solutions until we find one. Horvath raised his water container in a salute. to stubborn humans with tiny knives. Riley returned the gesture, smiling. To Draken warriors who learned quickly. They drank together while the station hummed with life around them. 3 days after the raid, Riley prepared to leave Station Harrow. Her ship was ready, supplies loaded, and systems checked. The Sixth Fleet had arrived, conducted inspections, and moved on to their scheduled patrol routes. The station had returned to normal operations as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. Riley walked through the main commerce district on her way to the docking bay. Merchants who had ignored her before now nodded respectfully. A group of young aliens, species she did not recognize, stopped her to ask questions about human combat techniques. Security guards saluted as she passed. She found Horvath waiting at the docking bay entrance. The Draken leader had recovered from his minor injuries. His warriors stood behind him, all 8 of them present. "I hope to catch you before you departed," Horvath said. "I have spoken with my people's military council. They're interested in what we learned here." Riley raised an eyebrow. "What did you learn?" "That we have been fighting the same way for too long. That there are techniques and philosophies we have not considered." Horvath held out a data tablet. "This contains a formal request from the Draken Warrior Assembly. They wish to establish an exchange program with human military forces. Our warriors would train with yours. Your soldiers would learn from us as well." Riley took the tablet, scrolling through the proposal. It was comprehensive and serious. Training rotations, cultural exchange protocols, joint exercise schedules. The Draken were not making empty gestures. "This is significant," she said. "It will require approval from several levels of human command. But I will forward it with my strongest recommendation. That is all I ask." Horvath paused, then continued. "I have one more request. Personal, not official. Go ahead. Teach me to fight like you. Not just the techniques, but the philosophy behind them. I want to understand how humans think about combat." Riley smiled. "That will take time. Probably years. I have time. And I have the feeling that our species will be fighting alongside each other in the future. I wish to be ready." He was right about that. The galaxy was changing. Human expansion was bringing them into contact with species who had never encountered them before. Some of those meetings would be peaceful. Others would not. "I can teach you the basics before I leave," Riley said. "But you will need to find a human instructor for advanced training." They spent the next 2 hours in a training room. Riley showed Horvath how human soldiers were taught to analyze opponents, to spot weaknesses and exploit them. She explained the concept of economy of motion, of using the minimum force necessary to achieve maximum effect. Horvath absorbed it all, asking sharp questions and testing each principle. By the end of the session, Riley could see him incorporating the lessons into his own style. He was a natural learner. "One last thing," Riley said as they finished. "Size and strength are advantages. Never forget that. But they are not the only advantages. Speed, precision, adaptability, intelligence, these matter just as much. Sometimes more. The tiny knife defeats the giant blade," Horvath said. "The right tool defeats the wrong one," Riley corrected. "My knife was right for that situation. Your blade might be right for others. The skill is knowing which to use when." They clasped arms in the human style, then in the Draken fashion. Riley headed for her ship. The rest of her crew was already aboard. Her second officer, Lieutenant Park, greeted her at the airlock. "Station Master Quellen sent a gift," Park said, handing Riley a small box, along with about 6 formal thank you messages from various merchant guilds. Riley opened the box. Inside was a new knife sheath, handcrafted from materials she did not recognize. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. A note in Quellen's handwriting accompanied it, for the blade that defended thousands. "Nice," Riley said, attaching it to her belt and transferring her knife to the new sheath. "Anything else?" "The trade contracts that started this whole mess have been resolved. The Draken got better terms than they expected. Everyone is happy." Park grinned. "Also, there's apparently a betting pool on when you and Horvath will fight again. Current odds favor Never, because you have become friends." Riley laughed. "Smart money is on Never, then? Prep for departure." She made her way to the bridge. Through the viewport, she could see Station Harrow rotating slowly against the star field. It looked peaceful now. No one watching would know what had happened here 3 days ago, but the galaxy would know soon enough. Word spread fast in trading stations. The story would be told and retold, probably growing more dramatic with each telling. Riley did not care about that. She cared that people were safe, that a station full of civilians had survived. The ship detached from the docking clamps and began moving away. Riley watched the station shrink in the distance. Course plotted for the Antares sector, the navigation officer reported. 2 weeks travel time. Engage. Riley settled into her command chair. And send my report to fleet headquarters. Include the Draken proposal and my recommendation for approval. As the ship accelerated, Riley thought about Horvath's words. The galaxy was changing. Humans were finding their place among species that had been exploring space for thousands of years before Earth developed spaceflight. Those species were learning that humanity brought unique strengths to the table: adaptability, persistence, the ability to learn quickly and apply lessons creatively, the willingness to turn perceived weaknesses into advantages, and, when necessary, the skill to end a fight with a single precise strike. Riley touched the knife at her hip. 20 centimeters of carbon steel, mass-produced in the thousands, standard issue for every human soldier. Nothing special about it except the person who wielded it and the training that person represented. She smiled. The alien warriors had mocked her tiny blade, and she had shown them what that blade could do in the right hands. That was the human way. Let others underestimate you, then prove them wrong. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying Riley Brooks toward her next assignment. Behind her, Station Harrow continued its rotation, defended and secure. Somewhere in the station, Horvath was probably already beginning to train his warriors in the new techniques he had learned. The tiny blade had taught its lesson. The galaxy would not forget.